Hey cousins, been a long day. I'm working late down here at the warehouse. I might be the only one left down here, no joke. But I stuck around because we got a new guitar into the warehouse and I need to do a little bit of evaluation, if you know what I'm talking about. A lot of times when I get these in, there's always something going on. Something they didn't note, something they didn't put in the description, and I need to check it out first. I'm not one to return things, hardly ever, because I'm pretty decent about knowing how to repair things or clean things. But sometimes I get things that are just too far beyond what I was expecting. In that case, I'll return it. So I always try to do that quickly. Let me show you what I do whenever I evaluate instruments like guitars, mandolins, banjos, stuff like that. Today we're going to be talking about a Guild F30 from 1965. All right, friends, look what we got here today. It's a really cool, kind of almost like a honey burst, or like an amber burst. This is not exactly a tobacco burst, but really cool looking instrument here. But let's just go ahead and start. I always start at the top, and then I work my way down, and I turn it over and I look at the back. So what this particular guitar here is featuring is an inlay with like a mother of pearl abalone type shell thing here at the top. Now there's a couple different types of designs that Guild did. Some of the ones they did not have inlay. It was just kind of like a color, like a paint or some kind of a colored thing here in gold, a lot of times color underneath of the lacquer, but in this case it's actually an inlay. This is pretty nice. This is 1965, folks, and so this guitar would have been made in the westerly it's in the Hoboken, New Jersey plant before they moved to Westerly, all right? And so it's the very end of the 1960s, 68, 69, when the first guitars, I think, started rolling out of that new location. But the stuff from Hoboken was supposed to be pretty darn good, a lot of creativity at that time. I can tell from the top here, just by looking at it, a couple of things. First off, you can see the tuning knobs here. On the left, these look to be original to the guitar. They're cracked, a little bit crackling here, and you can see these little nuts. But if I look over here, these are also metal, but they're flat. Boy, it's coming out as white there, but you can see these are flat, and they are not original. And you can even see the tuners here are a different color. It's kind of like a plastic, like a celluloid plastic, and this is more opaque. So right off the bat, I can tell we have a replacement tuner. We'll check that out a little bit closer when we get to the back. Very, very dusty. Now when I come down here, the nut looks decent. It seems the right size, probably original to the instrument. But when I look down here at the fretboard, we can see some tremendous wear, particularly on the third, between the second and the third fret here on the guitar. You can see how that's been kind of dug out. But I mean, look at this, is kind of this green along the edge of these frets, and just gunk. This thing has not been cleaned or really taken care of, which is common with these instruments from the 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and on. If people just kind of played them and stuck them in the back of their closet, sort of a thing. These are this is a pretty nice fretboard, except there is that heavy wear there. As I venture down further on this instrument, we're going to see a couple other things. First of all, I'm looking for cracks. I want to see, is there any crack around where the neck is joining the guitar body? What's the trim like here, the binding? Is that intact? Is it cracked? Is it separating? If I run my nail over this just slightly, I can feel that there's kind of an indentation there. So this top is not, it's not as snug as I would like for the binding. However, the binding is not cracked and it is not popping up off of the edge, which is a good sign. But I can tell, so sorry, I'm moving my finger over that. What I can tell, though, is that if you can see here, if I zoom in, you can see that the pick guard is starting to lift up off of the instrument here in the corner. And if I run it across the edge, you can see over here as well, pretty significantly, if I push it down, you'll see that? That is common. A lot of times these old guitars, over time, these were just glued down, and they will shrink, and then they will start to lift up off of the instrument, and that's not great. I'll have to figure out what the best thing to do there is, if it's going to be to just glue that back down. I've caught this early enough, I may be able to save it. If it pops up too much, or if it shrinks too much and gets rigid, there's nothing you can do other than remove it and put a replacement pickguard on, which does affect the value. And now I'm looking also over here. Right here where my finger is, in the middle, and even over here, these are common spots for there to be cracks in the same direction as the strings themselves here. But I'm not seeing anything like that. That is a very good sign. Also in the bottom here, I see that the oval sticker for the guitar is intact, and let's see what it says here. It says F30, and it says it has, like, I guess a serial number as well, and we'll look at that in a second. It looks like it says A1212. That should, or B1212, that should correspond with a number if we find it some other place, and as I had said a moment ago, there it says Hoboken, New Jersey, so that's a good sign. I don't see necessarily any sort of stamp or mark on the neck block on the inside. So we'll do a little bit more investigation. You can see there is definitely some wear here on the inside of the guitar itself, but I'm not seeing cracks. That's great. Still checking out here to see what the binding is like on this side, and it's okay. This could stand a good cleaning, but not too crackly in the finish. That's nice. Now, guys, this is where it gets really interesting here. All right, you may know what these are by looking at it, but I'll just tell you, these are vintage golf tees, probably from the 60s or 70s, maybe even in the 80s. But they've alternated, red, whites, and blues here. But these should be bridge pins made out of plastic, or if it had been originally, they would have been plastic, either a white or a black color, most likely. And some people replace these with a variety of things, other woods like rosewood or ebony. Sometimes they're made of bone, various things, or just replacement plastic ones. The other thing I'm noticing here, guys, is what you see, this little piece here in this groove that's like a metal. It almost looks like like a paper clip that's been unfolded. What should be there is something that looks very similar to this. This is the nut, and what is here is called the saddle. And the saddle is what the strings come up over and rest on, and that helps with, when the strings are tensioned, that helps keep it lifted up, and helps overall with the clarity and the sound quality between the nut and the saddle here. If I pull this off to the side, you'll see that those things are just coming up and going straight. There is absolutely no saddle here at all. Instead, they've stuck a piece of metal in here. That's what the strings are going over right now. It looks like one end is kind of glued into that spot. This is super bizarre, guys. I've never seen this before. If I bend this over and look, the action is not fantastic. Not horrible, but it is not fantastic. My guess is the person removed this saddle and thought that it would be sufficient to put a piece of metal here in order to bring the strings lower so that the action on the frets and here would be lower and make it therefore easier to play. The problem is you significantly compromise the sound quality of the instrument by doing this. This is just absolutely a no-no. So far, off the bat, I know I'm going to have to address these. Probably we'll have to tune it up and see if they keep a good tune, but I'm going to probably have to address, I'd like to have the same type of tuners on both sides of the instrument just for uniformity and so that they all work properly together. And then definitely I'm going to need to do some cleaning of the fretboard here and the frets, probably put a little bit of oil or something on the fret board for preservation there. Then I'm going to need to remove these wooden tees because they have no business being on a guitar. They should be on a golf course. I'm going to take the strings off. I'm going to remove this metal piece and this glue. And then I'm going to measure the width here and the I guess this would be like technically the length, and then the width on the inside, and figure out if that is a standard size. If it is, I can buy a replacement saddle. If it is not a standard size, then I will need to look for the closest thing, something that's slightly wider, and then I will have to on my own route this out with a Dremel tool or something like that in order to fit snugly as possible another saddle into that place. Now that I've addressed the top of this instrument, I'm almost finished. If I do this with the light, I can tell that there are no cracks behind the bridge and there are no cracks in front of the bridge. That's another great sign that this thing has been braced adequately and we have not had any significant damage to the top as a result of this tension from the strings. If I turn this over, I can also tell that it looks like maybe there's very, very slight lifting of the back of the body from the bridge, but nothing that really screams like a major problem to me. And so we're still in good territory. Now I'm just going to do a cursory examination of the neck here. It looks like it's fit in there properly. It doesn't look like it's ever been removed. So this instrument appears to have never had a neck reset. My guess is once I put a saddle in there, the action is going to be a little bit rough. It's playable, but for optimal use, you probably need to have the neck removed and reset at the adequate pitch so that the string action is lower, and that therefore makes it easier to play. Looking around the sides here, I'm not seeing any cracks. Really good condition overall. A couple little dinks and busts. This right here is just some crackling in the finish. That's not through the body, through the wood, so we're good to go there. And as I wrap around, it's kind of got a cool old leather strap on it here as well. The original end pin, which is made of plastic. And I just want to keep going along the edge to make sure. We've got some scuffs and some scrapes. Okay, what do we have right here? Now, this appears to be a crack. And so what we have is a crack here on the side. Let's see if I can lay this down and kind of get a little closer. You can see that right there. Here's my finger, my index finger, for comparison. About a length from my middle knuckle there to the tip of my finger. This is a common spot to have a crack. It does not look to be real wide. It's not like gaping open. And so, the next thing I'll do, and it will be very difficult to show you this on video, is I will look on the inside and see if there's any light coming through, how close it is. This may be the type of crack that can just be glued without really anything needing to be done to keep that from opening up any further. All right, we are now examining the back of this instrument. Just a beautiful mahogany. This is a mahogany back and sides and spruce top. I don't know if this is laminate or not, but I think that this is all solid side, solid back, and a solid top. We've got definitely some scuffing and rubbing, but that's not bad at all, as you can see. Now we're going to go up the neck. Definitely some wear here from hands rubbing on here and just playing with it over time, especially here on the side. As you can see right here, that discoloration or that change in coloration there is just from wear over time from the use. Now what we're going to see is exactly what I was talking about. You can tell by examining both the tuning portion that you would put your fingers on here that this is a different shape than that. This is more oval. This looks older, it's crackled. This is not. They're both open back tuners. These have flathead screws, and that which indicates, again, age. This is older than this. And these are Phillips head screws. And you can just see that the this portion here of the open back tuner is just, looks like a little cog. This here, however, has a round portion around it, and then a cog with smaller teeth than this. The original tuners have just a couple of layers of threading there in that portion, whereas over here you've got about 3 or 4 ribbed portions of this tuning portion. Also, the bottom of these basically these inline flat tuners have this sort of little shape here. I don't even know what you would call that shape, but it's very different than this shape. And so 2 different ones. I don't know. My guess is maybe the original one here, these got to the point where they crumbled, deteriorated, and came off. And it was either unable to be turned anymore at all, or it was just frustrating and irritating to the fingers to do that. And so instead of replacing both, which I would have recommended, they only replaced one. It's a bummer for me because if I replace these, I like to keep the originals. If I ever want to sell it, usually people want as many of the original components as possible, and that's something you should know if you ever get into vintage instruments. If you need to replace things for functional purposes, that's fine, but keep those old ones. Don't throw them out. You might need them again sometime, or the next person down the line might want them. And so I don't have the luxury of getting the secondary one here, so what I'm going to try to find is a period appropriate set of 6 tuners, or 2 sets of 3, open back like this, and I'm going to try to match it really like the best that I can based off of this one right here that I'm looking at on the right side here. So that will be one thing. At the top here, finally, AL212 that does match the serial code on the inside, and the research I did before I even purchased this instrument dates it at right around 1965. Guys, overall, really cool instrument. I'm going to take these strings off. I'm going to take out these golf tees. I'm going to clean the fretboard and the frets. I'm going to replace the tuning pegs and the tuners. I'm going to put a new saddle in this, new bridge pins. I'm going to try to glue down the pick guard so I can keep that original pick guard, and then I'm going to glue that little crack in the side. You know what? I got this instrument for less than 50% of what the going sale of these instruments is, and I believe after that little work I'm going to do, she's going to sound real nice, and I'm going to have a real good instrument here. So, you know, I'll probably spend somewhere, I'll buy some glue, some bridge pins, a saddle, and some tuning. And tuners will be the most expensive thing. But for less than $100, easily less than $100, probably more like $75 or less, I'll get all the work done on this that I need. And again, I still have an instrument for well under its value. Beautiful little instrument. I do love guilds. Well, there you go, folks. I'm kind of glad that I stuck around tonight. I'm going to try to do some of this work. And then tomorrow, I'm going to do a little bit more work. And then as soon as she's done, all the glue's dried, I'm going to put some new strings on this puppy and see how she sounds. Hopefully that helped you out a bit. I love instruments, and they can be really fun things to learn about. And also, they typically appreciate in value, especially if you're talking about really nicer brands that have been around a long time. Gibson, Martin, Guild, Fender, just to name a few. Well, guys, take care. See you soon. Whoa there, Peaches.
Busted.